Good day guys, so I was actually planning a much more fun video today, but I want to give you guys the story of school and how I got fucked over. So let's dig right into that.
Welcome to the channel of Skeptic Llama. Had excommunicated him for being skeptic, along with his abortion of a dress sense. Now he roams the wilds of the internet.
Ladies and gentlemen, let me introduce to you none other than
Skeptic Llama, Skeptic Llama,
Skeptic Llama.
So back during university times, I was taking game programming, and I was actually a really good game programmer. I did a lot more work than a lot of people, spent a lot of time just sitting around doing programming and exploring the programming languages because I enjoyed doing it, and that was fine. And then we had these deliveries, which were basically just program this thing and deliver it to us. And that was great, because that's exactly what I enjoy doing. Except they specifically said we couldn't be too far ahead of other people. So when I delivered something with strings, for example, in C++, before we had learned how to use strings, I would fail that assignment, even though I was doing something completely correct. I was doing something that is normal practice out in the field. I was keeping to a much higher standard than what we were supposed to use, and that got me failed on some of the assignments. Now I changed that later on. I went back and I redid them so that they were appropriate for the class I took. And when we then came to the exams for most of our programming classes, they were less than optimal. So I've told people about. So I've made a video on my ADHD earlier, and I also have dyslexia combined with it. And when you have those two combined, writing on paper is a very, very hard thing to do. Basically, my handwriting is worse than a normal doctor's handwriting, even if I try my very best. I am also very prone to misspelling things and overlooking things, or thinking that I've written a line. So when we were forced to write our programming language on paper without any sort of, backspacing or any sort of correction that we could have, I ended up dropping from what will probably be a B or an A to about a D on my programming skill, because I wasn't allowed to use the tools that I need to be able to be as good as I am on programming. Now, this isn't something that's new. This is something I've done for a long time. And it's something that is a problem with programming classes. It's not as much of a problem for everyone else. But when you struggle with dyslexia and you struggle with writing in general, this is something that becomes a huge issue. So I worked my fucking ass off trying to learn how to be better at writing programming code on paper, as in, machine code that you will never ever write on paper after that school. I was practicing hard on making that on paper, right? So for my second exam in programming, this was during third semester, I think. We were doing something called algorithms, and during the exam, we were prompted to read a page from a external book that was not delivered on the actual exam. Now, most people here probably don't know how Norwegian exams work, but the general idea is that anyone, regardless of how much money they have, should be able to perform optimally during the exam. That means that if there's anything you need to have to be able to answer a question, it needs to be delivered so that people have an equal chance. For example, if the question itself says, look at page this and that in the book, that page has to be printed together with the exam, and then they should refer to the edition number 1, 2, 3, or whatever the fuck it is, right? Because regardless of whether or not you have the book, you should be able to complete the task. Now, during that exam, there were 5 questions in total, and 2 of them had a book reference. I did not have the book back in those days because you couldn't actually get it. The book was an old one that was out of date, and you couldn't get it online. You couldn't get it at the bookstore at my school. So the only way of getting it was to buy a heavily overpriced, like a folder that he personally had printed out and was selling to students to be used for his own vacation money later on. And I specifically didn't buy that because that would be, not only would be illegal, which I don't know why they even allow it, but it will also be very much against my morals. So I refused to buy that one, and because of that, I couldn't answer 2 questions. I still actually got a high D on that test. But again, I was fucked over, and that's after I was sitting down, practicing writing programming code on paper. Now there's other things that also fuck things over, like people leaving a group when you have a group mission, and then you end up like a 4-man project that you have to do alone. That happened to me a couple of times, which also dragged down my grades. But the thing I actually want to focus on here is how we can improve schools and what we should look into to make these kind of things not as much of an issue. And I personally think that for a practical subject, you should always be doing a project for your assignment, for your exams, and not do a written exam. Written exams should only be for theoretic subjects. So in my case, for example, we should have an exam that involves us programming something and then showing how we programmed it, have them read through the code, and then let that be our exam. And we did have that for one of the courses, but that should be for all the courses. Let's say you're in a practical subject about stuff like keeping animals or farms or like gardening or something. The exam should be practical. It should have to do with your ability to perform your job, not your ability to remember on the spot how much fucking dirt goes over this seed here, or how deep you have to dig to put this tree into the ground. That's so fucking bullshit. Your ability to be able to do this shouldn't be reliant on your ability to remember it. Memory is not skill. Anyways, guys, I've talked way too long already. This is a topic I could go on about for like fucking forever, but I'm not gonna do it. So, yeah. Thank you guys for watching. If you have any comments, if you have anything you want to say about this, if you have any stories that are similar to this, or if you have any other stories or solutions to this issue, please do leave those in the comment section below. Do check out my Patreon. It will be linked right up there, up to my right, quite soon. And yeah, stay fucking classy, all of you. Okay, yes. I'll give you the good one. I'll give you the good one. So, everyone, stay fucking classy.